Hey friends, welcome to my Friday night at 8:35 p.m. I am so excited to be here with you all this evening. Had a lot going on in the last week or so. So let's get started. I hope you all have had an amazing week. I've had a pretty great week myself. And I'm actually home now for 10 days before I have to leave again. I think I'm on my last flight until fall. So fingers crossed there. Tonight, what we're going to talk about is knowing when to stay and when to leave. Because a lot of what I talk about is about staying and how we build self-trust by staying. But I don't want you to think that means there's never a time to leave, because there is. So I've actually been thinking about that a lot this week. To know when it really is time to leave something, or if you're just in an uncomfortable season, because a lot of times we are just in an uncomfortable season and we choose that as a reason to start over. But these are two very different things. So I wanted to see what the rest of the world is told when they're wrestling with major life decisions or a life choice like this. So I did a real simple Google search on what to do when you're stuck. And I noticed a fascinating trap, okay? On one side, the internet gives us endless bulleted lists telling us to burn it all down the moment we feel unhappy. And on the other side, it preaches grit and tells us that walking away is a failure. No wonder we stay up at 2 a.m. scrolling to look for answers. It can give us a million symptoms, but zero criteria. It teaches us to intellectualize our exhaustion. Let me try that again. When we're doing a search on the internet, it can teach us to intellectualize our exhaustion instead of listening to our truth. Wow. Tonight, we aren't looking at generic checklists, okay? Because here's the secret. Those checklists treat your situation like it's a black and white rule book. But most events in our lives are completely neutral. It's never the event itself that traps us. It's the meaning that we give it. Think about a simple example, and you know I use this a lot, so I'm actually going to try to think of some other examples to use for future. If you have any other examples you'd like me to tackle in a future live, put them in the comments, or even go ahead and DM me if you don't want to put it in the comments. But I'm just going to use this one because I think so many of us can relate to this. You are doing a workout program, and maybe your boss wanted you to stay late. Maybe you get off at 5. You've got it all planned for the night. You're going to be at the gym by 5:30. It's leg night. Then you're going to hop on the treadmill for 20 minutes, shower, and go home. But at 4:30, your boss comes up and has something that has to be done. Has to be done, like within 10 minutes of the close of business, which of course you realize is not cannot be accomplished. So you end up staying till after 6 o'clock working on this, right? And you're exhausted now. So you don't want to go to the gym. And you talk yourself out of going to the gym. And let me just tell you that right there, that's not always a bad thing. The problem is not that you decided not to go to the gym because you had to work late. The problem is what comes next, okay? If you miss your workout because you had to work late, again, that is a neutral event. Well, we could actually argue you might be a little angry with your boss, but the event itself is neutral, right? So you can look at it in a number of different ways, but we're just going to look at it in 2 ways. So you stayed late. You're exhausted. You've made the decision to go home and not do your workout tonight. So you have a choice. Choice 1, you can say, all right, let me figure out where I can fit this workout in later this week. Maybe I just bump everything out by a day or whatever. It's fine. That means this was my rest day instead of tomorrow. Or You use it as an excuse to spiral out of control, thinking, oh, here I did it again. I missed another workout. I didn't fulfill what I needed to do. And I'm going to have to start over. I just can't ever finish anything. I'm not good enough at this. I have to start over. And I think a lot of us would be lying if we didn't say that we had not done the second one more than once or twice, right? So we do the exact same thing when we're deciding to stay or leave a job, a relationship, a goal. Things like exhaustion, conflict, and stagnation. Those are neutral events. Again, the internet tries to tell you what those events mean. But tonight, we're going to take them back. We're not talking about checklists, okay? So knowing when to leave versus when to endure an uncomfortable season comes down to three main signals: core alignment, repeated patterns, and personal cost. These are all things that I talk about. I just don't always use this particular language. Now, let me be really clear before we dive any deeper. Sometimes leaving is absolutely the healthiest decision. Leaving a toxic relationship, an unhealthy environment, something that no longer aligns with your values. This isn't about staying no matter what. I want to make sure that you understand that very early on is very important. I'm not promoting endurance at all costs. However, we've become really quick to leave things simply because they're uncomfortable. Like maybe somewhere along the way, we start confusing discomfort with a sign. We think this is hard. Maybe I'm not meant to do it. The relationship feels difficult. Maybe it's wrong. This business isn't growing fast enough. Maybe I should quit. This habit is harder than I expected. Maybe I'm just not disciplined. But what if discomfort isn't information? What if it's part of growth, right? Because here's what I've noticed. We leave our goals, we leave habits, we leave businesses, we leave commitments. And if we're not careful, we eventually leave ourselves. Wow. So every time we decide, I'm just going to become someone different, I'm just going to start over, I'll try again on Monday, we slowly abandon the person we were becoming. Writing that gave me chills because that has been me so many times. That again is why I started breaking the Monday loop, because whether it's Monday or Tuesday or next month, we all have done this at least once in our lives. Some of us, like me, have done it repeatedly, where we just get to a point where it's uncomfortable, it's boring, it's not what we expected, it's harder, and we decide that that is a reason to leave and start over. And remember, starting over is one of the biggest forms of self-sabotage you can do to yourself. So I don't really think people leave just because life gets hard. They leave because of what that meaning is. And this is what everything comes back to. The meaning we put behind things, the story we tell ourselves about the event. Like we did a few minutes ago with the workout, but also here we go. The hardship comes. Well, I'm not cut out for this. I'm behind on something. Well, everyone else is figuring it out except for me. This must be a sign. But those meanings did not come from the event that actually happened. Those meanings came from the story you told yourself about the event. And that is a lot deeper to get through before we even were to start talking about checklists. Because you could do all the checklists you want, but if you still have those feelings deep down inside of the meaning you give an event, that is going to cause you to continue to start over. And hey, it takes time to do this. If I've been doing the same thing for 50 years, it's not going to be good in 5 days. Not even necessarily in 50 days. Probably be a lot closer. I am a lot closer now. I've been using this system for over 6 months. And as I've been using it, I have been diving deeper in and learning more about things. I started this as just trying to figure out how not to restart every Monday. But as I was doing it, I realized that it's so much deeper than that. And if we don't unpack the story we're telling ourselves about the event, we will continue to find ourselves starting over on Monday. So I wanted to say, I wish I could give you a checklist, but honestly, at this point, I don't think a checklist is the right thing. If you watched the masterclass last Saturday night, I went over the Adapt, Don't Abandon framework. And that is something, if you were to message me, I'd be more than happy to send you that sheet that we went through. I had people from that class as well as the in-person class I did last week talk about that paper and how it really helped them. And we also went through and did that together as a group. And we actually used what I said earlier about working out, where we said, your boss gave you something to do at 5:30. So, all right. So when life doesn't work out the way you want it to, that's a lot of times when we say things are hard, right? So saying, is this hard to yourself is the wrong question. Now, I bet you already know what I am going to say. Before that, let me say hello to my mom who's watching. Hi, Mom. Excited to see you in a couple weeks. So remember, is this hard is the wrong question to be asking yourself, because almost everything meaningful in my life has been hard. Marriage has been hard. Growth has been hard. Changing careers has been hard. Having children has been hard. Becoming healthier has been hard. Learning to trust myself has been hard. If I hadn't used hard as my compass, I would have walked away from some of the best things that have ever happened in my life. So I want you to really stop and think about that. Those are just some examples for myself. So stop and think when you're thinking of something like, oh, this is hard, I think I need to quit. You need to stop and think, is this hard that I need to quit, or what am I telling myself that's causing me to want to quit this, right? Because we all want easy, of course. And our brain wants to keep us safe, and keeping us safe is keeping us in the starting over loop. Because as I say, on every one of these, we are all experts in starting over. Now, talking about when we went from hard when something's uncomfortable, gaining wisdom. The pain, this is a good one. The pain teaches you a clear lesson about how you act or think. I don't know a time when gaining wisdom was ever an easy thing. The word wisdom, which is something we all want to have, not just knowledge, we want wisdom, but it's not easy. And a real simple example of that is those little teeth they put in the back of our mouths that probably 95% of us don't have anymore, either because they caused us problems or are about to cause us problems, are called wisdom teeth. So that's just a little simple example there. Working towards a goal can be very uncomfortable. If it's not uncomfortable working towards a goal, you are probably not working towards the goal you need to. You're thinking of something that you could do, whether it's a goal or not. Now, deep down, your core values need to remain the same, but sometimes we have shared values. I have a barking dog. Let's see if she stops. I might have to get up. The interesting thing about her is that she is deaf, but she barks and whines more than any of the other dogs I've had since I moved back to Michigan. All right. Now, when we are going through and talking about something that's uncomfortable, instead of saying, is this uncomfortable or is this hard and I want to finish, stop and say, am I reacting to fear or intuition? Fear or intuition? Fear is always going to keep you in that mindset where you think you need to start over. This can't be right. Everything's horrible. That's fear. Intuition is the truth, what you're thinking down inside, keeping to going. That didn't make any sense. Keep on going. For fear, you might say something like, it's loud. It wants immediate relief. It tells me just stop. You're embarrassing yourself. This isn't working. You're wasting your time. Fear wants certainty. It wants the discomfort to end. That's what fear is. Truth sounds different. It's usually quieter. Sometimes it says, yes, this is hard, but keep going. Sometimes it says, you don't need a new plan. You need another week. And I'm not talking about a week to start over. I'm talking about maybe you just need one more week, a little bit more time to see the plan through. Because every time we do that, we're collecting evidence, which means we're collecting receipts and we're building our confidence. Remember, evidence comes first. Confidence comes from evidence. Sometimes truth says you're growing. Don't confuse growth with failure. It's easy to do that because it's hard and it's uncomfortable and you might be a little scared. That's part of growing. Now, let me ask you a couple questions. And I'm going to answer a little bit myself here. So if you're unsure what to say, hopefully this will help you answer for yourself. Or write down the question and answer later. So the first question I want to ask is, am I leaving because something is wrong or because it's uncomfortable? Okay. Am I leaving because something is wrong or is it just because I'm uncomfortable? I've had a lot happen over the last year in my life. And I have had to, unfortunately, let go of two animals of my own within a year, plus one of my father's animals, all of them within probably 16 to 18 months. That was very difficult to do. Okay. There's many times where I thought, I don't know if I want any more animals because I don't want to go through this again. That was fear of me having a broken heart. But my intuition and the truth is that I can give as much to another animal as they can give to me. So we are getting ready to open our home up to fosters. Now, I will say right now, mark it down. My goal is not to foster fail because every dog I've fostered has been a foster fail, which kind of the intention to begin with is that's what they were going to be. Except for maybe Boyd at first, but he was here and within 2 weeks. It was just, he was going to stay. He's my total heart dog. Miss him like crazy. Now, moving on from, am I leaving because it's wrong versus is it uncomfortable? The next question is, what story am I telling myself about this season? Because if you can get to a point, whether it, like someone asked me in the class last week, what signs are you looking for before you self-sabotage? For yourself, or these are working with college students. And I said, for me, just by starting to use the adapt, don't abandon framework that I created, um, just by using that a few times, well, then I started it in my head. So I didn't always have to have the paper out, right? Because at first I was going to make it as a planner. And then it was like, well, you hope you aren't dealing with events like this every single day. Sometimes you may be, sometimes you may not be. But I didn't want to make a planner be that you're dealing with that every single day. So it's just the adapt, don't abandon framework. And what I found is that, well, one, when it became very crystal clear how much the story you're telling yourself and the meaning you're giving an event affects everything in your life, it's very hard to unsee that. So I was able to take those, I guess, like maybe milestones or concepts is the word I meant. Concepts I thought of, and go ahead and create the adapt, don't abandon framework. Now, a lot of times I don't have to use the paper. I just know it in my head and do it. And I mean, when things are rough, I'm not going to lie, when things get rough, there's a lot of times where I'm just saying over and over in my head, adapt, don't abandon, adapt, don't abandon, adapt, don't abandon. Because, like I said, I've been doing things one way pretty much for 52 years. So it's not going to happen overnight. There are still times where those little thoughts and meanings creep up on me and I want to start over, which is that in and of itself is one of the biggest forms of self-sabotage. So it's really important to have a toolbox, a mental toolbox, to help you get through things like that. Definitely, when you can start and sit there and just figure out what story am I telling myself about this, it makes it so much better. And then next, this is another one, and this is used for all kinds of stuff. If fear wasn't making the decision, would I still make the same one? Okay. If fear was not making this decision, would I still make the same one? Don't rush it. Sit in it. And then you got to see, honestly, yes. Sometimes the answer is going to be yes. I'm going to still make the same decision. Okay. But sometimes leaving it, like I said at the beginning, is absolutely the right thing to do. But I've also realized there's been moments when the only thing driving my decision was the desire to escape discomfort. And I would think some of you are silently nodding your heads or raising your hand there too, like, yeah, sometimes that's been me. But I've learned that escaping discomfort and following wisdom aren't always the same things. Okay. Now, I do not know what you are walking through today. I don't know if you're having something going on in a relationship with your health, your business. Maybe it's something no one else even knows about. But before you decide it's time to leave, ask yourself, am I leaving because this isn't meant for me, or because I assigned a meaning to this season that isn't actually true? Because not every uncomfortable season is asking you to walk away. Sometimes it's asking you to adapt. So remember, life is going to a life. Life is going to life. Adapt, don't abandon. I hope you all have an amazing weekend, and I will be back with some exciting news for my next masterclass for August and what it's going to be about. So I look forward to seeing you all next Friday night, and I hope you have a great one. Bye.